when your understanding deepens, compassion arises in you spontaneously towards everybody, including yourself. Because then you realize that how everybody is so fragile, everybody is in some way so vulnerable. And as you see that it's so easy to hurt, it is so easy to reject, it is so easy to be unloving, it comes automatically often in our way of reacting. And it just needs a little bit more wakeful and careful way of being with the moment so that we can respond from clarity, and from clarity means also from compassion.
Rejection in context with compassion and...
But when you experience the essence, when you experience the reality without words, beyond the logical rational process, when it's a direct experience, then you realize that the non-dualistic reality can be indicated in so many ways. That is why in the Sufi tradition they say 1001 words for the godliness.
Awareness and consciousness. Recorded in the Life Surfer's house in Freiburg. This is the Life Surfing Podcast with Bhashkar.
Today we are having English. So if any questions are there, anything to say, anything to express, and anyone who is participating from here or participating from elsewhere, then we can start with that. When anything is engaging you, anything is working in you, and you have the feeling to look into it more clearly, or any unclarity there which you feel will be valuable to bring it into conscious level and clear it, this is one of the possibilities. Yeah.
In connection with other human beings, one can reject other human beings, whatever, out of reason, or one can have compassion. Can you say something to it?
It comes basically to one factor. Are we present? Are we present to see what is happening in us? Are we ready to bring the attention to that what is taking place really in us? Because without a deliberate initiative and effort from our side to look and face things in us, the automatism is pulling our life energy into the habitual reaction patterns. So we have to be first of all aware that there is a certain inner automatism in us which is working as if it is only defending the status quo at every cost. That means when you are not present, you are not here to look in the moment, what is taking place within me, the conditioned idea of yourself and what one can call the egocentric way of looking dominates, takes the life energy in its patterns, and then very often we are just making decisions, conclusions based on that without really seeing the situation. And then whether we are accepting somebody or rejecting somebody, it's mostly with some calculation or some fear or some kind of effort to prove the image, but it is not a clear state. On the contrary, when you are looking in yourself, what is happening in me, what is getting touched in me, what is going on, then in the very willingness from your side to look at yourself, something starts opening up, because you are not trapped in the inner automatism. Your energy gets disentangled from this automatic pull, and you start seeing more. Your perception deepens. And then you recognize, what is now this situation? What is my answer what is happening in me. And almost spontaneously one can say a quality of compassion arises. So compassion is not something which we try to manage and force and put on as if it is a kind of thing through which we will get some benefit. It is more that when you see, when you are clear, when your understanding deepens, compassion arises in you spontaneously towards everybody, including yourself. Because then you realize that how everybody is so fragile, everybody is in some way so vulnerable. And as you see that it's so easy to hurt, it is so easy to reject, it is so easy to be unloving, it comes automatically often in our way of reacting. And it just needs a little bit more wakeful and careful way of being with the moment so that we can respond from clarity. And from clarity means also from compassion. Because compassion is a natural byproduct of our inner clarity. That is why those who understand, they are not saying, now be compassionate, be good, be right. Yes, these are valuable orientations at a certain stage. But for those who can understand, it is said, go deeper. Bring the consciousness in your life and start seeing what is going on. And from that arises that what is valuable. From that arises what is helpful. And from that arises that what is truly intelligent. Because it is the intelligence of your heart which will come into manifestation. And it's not coming from an inner conflict, it is coming from your wholeness. So you will not regret it afterwards. And you will not regret when you have been compassionate in a deeper sense. But you will regret when you have been unsensible, acting out of an unclear state. And then whatever you do, there's an inner split. One part says, yes, do this, and the part says, no, what are you doing? So, bringing consciousness into the moment is a very valuable basis to allow a healthy, human, sensible way of going about life. And then you also see that everybody is unique and everybody needs to be looked without our a priori judgments, without our projections through our conditioning and putting them in boxes. And once this becomes clear to you, not because somebody is telling to you to do it, but from your understanding it becomes transparent to you that it is so. Then it will flower more and more in you. Then your life will become spontaneously filled with the fragrance of compassion and love.
Coming up next.
But when you experience the essence, when you experience the reality without words, beyond the logical rational process, when it's a direct experience, then you realize that the non-dualistic reality can be indicated in so many ways. That is why in the Sufi tradition they say 1,001 words for the godliness. Any other question or anything else in anyone? Yeah.
You just used quite often the word consciousness. Can you say something about awareness and consciousness?
With all words, it's an attempt to say something which cannot be contained in words. It's all poetic. That is why it's very, very valuable that we consider the words and consider also see The words are just meant to give the direction for the consideration. Awareness is very valuable. Awareness reminds one not to fall into a sleepy state, not to fall into a resignated state. Consciousness is emphasizing on being present. And both are pointing to the same direction. But you can see that depending on to whom it is being indicated, sometimes the word awareness will make sense to somebody and, okay, I need to be more wakeful, more present, more alert. And for somebody else, just the word consciousness is enough to say that, hey, be here, be with the now, be with the moment. So, words are poetic, and especially when it comes to deeper dimensions of our reality. That's why you have heard me quoting Lao Tse so many times. He refused to write a book. Even though the emperor from China was an admirer of him and asked him, please write a book, because what you are saying is so valuable. But Lao Tse refused to write the book because he had a different understanding of it all. And then, at the time when Lao Tse said, now my time has come to leave the body, I will go to the mountains and leave the body there. As the emperor heard of that, he became very alert and said to all the border posts, Lao Tse should be allowed to go further to the mountains only when he writes a book. This is the background story of it, and it's very beautiful. And the significant thing in this is that Lao Tse began the book with the most significant indication: the truth cannot be said, and that what is said is a lie. It's not that anybody is trying to tell lies to you, you know that, but yet he is emphasizing on it. And we need to understand it very sympathetically. We need to consider what he's saying very carefully. You can give words to indicate, but everybody is listening to the same word through their past, through their association. And when it comes to very practical things like this is a flower vase, this is a sofa, this is a microphone, it's easily practically understandable and it's good. But when it comes to feelings, when it comes to experiences, and I often give this very simple, understandable example, someone who is traveling and eating a fruit somewhere in another country where some special fruits are available, but here it's not yet available. So this person says, I have eaten such and such a fruit, and it tastes so great, it's very good. Now, the other friends who are here will ask, how does it taste? How can he say? He say, it tastes a bit like orange, or a bit like the apple, or a bit like the peach, some kind of associations through which these persons who are here can bring a little connection to it. But he cannot give the experience. So you can understand the limitation of words when it comes to deeper experiences. That is why people who are clinging to words and trying to settle with words miss the point. And when you look carefully in the world, most of the conflicts the wars are based on clinging to words. Somebody says, God is the most important. God is the highest. The other says, no. Ishvara. And another says, no, Allah. And another says, no, just the Great Spirit. And another one says, Tao. Now, when you hear all this, you think that it's all very different things. And who is right? But when you experience the essence, when you experience the reality without words, beyond the logical rational process, when it's a direct experience, then you realize that the non-dualistic reality can be indicated in so many ways. That is why in the Sufi tradition they say 1,001 words for the godliness. 1,001, just because human tendency is to hold to something. But all the attributes which can be indicated, they are somehow bringing one closer to consideration. So don't cling to words, because words, when you cling to them, it becomes dangerous. You become fanatic, you become dogmatic. And more than that, the real problem is you imagine that life can be reduced into knowledge. The truth is not knowledge. That is why there is a word existing, wisdom. Wisdom is when the knowledge is seen and understood for what it is, with all its possibilities and limitations. And a person who becomes wise is one like Socrates, who says, I know only one thing that I don't know. This is very, very significant that we consider it very carefully and let it become our understanding. It has to do with being honest with oneself. That's why I tell friends who really want to become clear and free, be ruthlessly honest with yourself. Be ready to look at everything. Not only what is apparently there, don't just hide behind words. Look, for example, when you say fear, what is behind the fear in you? What idea of I, me or mine is operating? What are you clinging to? What are you trying to save? What are your goals? What are your wishes? What are your desires which are operating in you? So, when you start looking behind the words, deeper into you, you start experiencing a different dimension of your reality. That is why those who understand, they are reminding, seek the truth. Truth is only a word indicating that which cannot be contained in words. It is not my truth or your truth. It is the truth. And the truth means that what we will experience when we are not projecting through words, when we are not projecting through our conditioning, when we are not trying to put it in another box. See the difference. Normally when we say I understand, we are saying, okay, this I can understand. So because we can categorize it, label it, and put it in some way. But the real is not another word. It's not another knowledge. That is what you are. And because it is your source, it is your innermost reality, you can experience it beyond words. So Ramana Maharshi was insisting, ask who am I? And he said, all the explanations which the mind is producing, reject it. Know that that is not. And when the mind becomes quiet and it has no explanation, stay with the quest. This is a very significant indication. Many people who recognize this significance of it came from all over the world to Ramana Maharshi. Because they saw it is not another dogma, it's not another belief. Beliefs means you believe something because it fits with some concept, some idea which you have. And then when it looks different, you can be disappointed, you can be unhappy, you can get upset. But when it is your own direct experience, you cannot get disappointed because you realize it is so. That is the meaning when it is said, allow the silence inside. And you become silent inside when you are not letting the energy get trapped in the mind which is trying to categorize, judge and put it in boxes. When you watch all this tendency, then a quality of inner quietness arises, where your life energy is here. That is when a new perception, a new experiential understanding can happen. That is where we become available without being aggressively trying to figure it out. So, recognize the limitation of the words and then see also that in the world, in the game of the world, in the practical functioning, we need to use words. And in the deeper orientation, words can be used to give indications. For example, when I am speaking to you, I am using words. But at the same time, I am reminding you in many ways not to cling to the words. Let it become your direct experiential understanding.
The Life Surfing Podcast will be back next week. In the meantime, make sure that you're following us right here on Spotify.